John Lowe's here for Lusk Archery Adventures. Serious testing, successful hunting. Man, I've got a nice broadhead to test today. Another brand new one by SEVR. I love SEVR broadheads, okay? If you watch my channel, you know that. They've always performed really well. But now they've come out with a new 1.75 broadhead, 1.75 inch cutting diameter. So they have the 1.5, the 2.0, and now the new 1.75. They've discontinued the other one, the 1.7 that they had. This one is really similar to the 1.5 and the 2.0. It's just right in the middle, and I'm thinking it might be a sweet spot, okay? I like the 1.5 for really big animals. I like the 2.0 for a little bit smaller animals. This just might be the one to use for every animal. So we'll see. We'll put it to the test and see how it performs. So in just a minute, I'll zoom on in here. We'll go through some of the design features and specifications, and then I'm going to put it to the test using my protocol for 2023. And for a detailed description about that, you can watch the video. It's just called 2023 Broadhead Test Process or something like that. I posted it earlier this year, and that'll just explain everything that I do in the tests, or you can read about it in the description box right below this video. And also you can see the scores of how each head performed in that. And in the description, you also see all the discount codes for the broadheads that I have. And so you can, with a lot of really good ones, you can get savings as well, just using my discount codes, and SEVR is one of those. So let's zoom on in here and check it out. Oh, and I'm using for the test my Bowtech CP28 set at 72 pounds. I'm using Bishop FOC King arrows for most of the shots, but then the Bishop FAD eliminators for the really hard impact ones because they're like tough as nails. All right, let's check out this new SEVR 1.75. Here's a good look at the 1.75. Now, if you're not familiar with the SEVR, I'm going to go through it just briefly because I always get questions about it. First of all, the materials, its body and tip are all made out of a single piece of grade 5 titanium. And you notice the tip is a good stout chisel tip. It's actually pretty sharp. And so it has basically a 1/3 of an inch cut in this dimension. And then when fully open, it's got 1 3/4 inches of cut in that dimension. That's why it's called the 1.75. But this tip functions like a bleeder. It opens up a cross cut to help you get a wider wound channel, a better wound channel that's more difficult to close up. Now, the way it functions is, first of all, in flight, the blades are held in place by this synthetic O-ring here. And it's synthetic. You don't have to worry about it freezing or dry rotting. And as you can see, there's very little surface area. It's one of, if not the best flying broadheads there is, because unlike a lot of other mechanicals that have a lot of exposed blade, this has very little exposed blade. So the way it works is, upon impact, these little wing butts, so to speak, are forced back. That's called a gator style head. They're forced back, and then that causes the blades to deploy from the rear. It's a rear deploying broadhead, and they cut through or push off this O-ring, and then they open like that. And you can see the little indentation. That's not a dent. That's there by design. That's where the O-ring slides into, so it doesn't cut through the O-ring. But they're forced open, and you can feel it kind of pop when they hit a certain point, and that's where they lock. It's one of the unique things about a SEVR, and they have it patented, the way it locks. So they lock in the open position. Now, it's not considered barred because you can pull them out this way, but they lock in their fully their full cutting diameter of 1.75. A lot of gator blades tend to kind of close as they penetrate, but the SEVRs lock, and most of the time they lock. If you get a really soft medium, sometimes I've seen it where they don't lock, but then you have a typical gator style head. But when they do lock, it's really nice because no matter what, you're going to get that cut. Now, you also notice that as they lock, because of that lock, they pivot, and that's one of the beauties of a SEVR, and one of their advertising things is, if you hit like a bone, a rib or something with one blade, the blade will pivot around rather than ricocheting off. And something that happens less infrequently, more frequently than people realize, especially with the big 2-blade head, is when they hit a bone, they veer really far off course. You can think, man, I had a really perfect shot. Look, I showed the video. It went right in, double lung, but then it hit hit a rib and then it ricocheted right into the guts, and you wonder why you didn't get much of a blood trail. Well, that's a lot less of a problem with the SEVR because it pivots around. Now, when it pivots around, for that little pivot, you're getting less cut. You're not getting half the cut, you're getting more than half because this sticks out even farther than the 3/4 of an inch. So you're still getting a decent cut, but then they move so freely that they're going to be really quick after it passes that with the friction on the other side to level back, and you get that 1 3/4 inches of cut. Now also, when they're in the locked position, you can kind of see it here. These two blades at the base, okay, the two butts of the blades bump up against each other. It's kind of hard to see. And with a really hard impact, what happens is they slide. There's a little bit of an angle there. They can slide over. Now, it takes a lot of force hitting both blades at once, but then they're going to slide over each other, and it's a way that they absorb the impact, so the blades are much less prone to break. If they hit, one thing hard, they're going to pivot. If they hit two really hard things at exactly the same time, even then, it's really unlikely they're going to break because of that little overlap. It's gonna absorb some of that recoil. Now, when it does that, they get stuck in the open position, and you got to use like pliers or something to pull them back apart. And so that can kind of be a pain. Now, the way they close, some people have a hard time with them closing. They come with a little tool, but you really don't even need a tool. You just need to lift up with my thumb. I lift up one of the blades, and then the other just slides under it into the closed position like that, and then I can just put the O-ring back. Okay, whoops, it got stuck on the blade. I can put the O-ring back. Now, you'll also notice some screw hole here. What that's for is they come with a little set screw that you can screw it in, and that keeps the blades closed. So you can practice with them in the closed position for flight. Now, I really don't practice with them in the closed position because they fly exactly like my field point out to 80 yards. I've shot them out 80 plus yards, and they really do fly within my margin of error, just like a field point. But if you want to practice with them and test that with your bow, use that set screw and put it in there, and then it keeps the blades closed. Now, if you shoot them into a foam target, it can get in there and still kind of reach the blades sometimes, especially with the 2.0. It's got a more narrow ferrule, or the Robusto, their crossbow version that's stainless steel, 150 grain. It's a more narrow version, and so some friction can still rub against the blades a little bit, and so you got to watch that and make sure they're still sharp. But with a thicker ferrule on the 1.75 and the 1.5, you really don't have that problem. You just got to make sure you take that set screw out before you go hunting, or you're going to wonder why you're not getting much of a hole. So that's a basic rundown of the 1.75. I'm really eager to put this head to the test and see how it measures up to the 2.0 and the 1.5 and just see its overall performance. It took 175 grams of force to cut through the wire, which is a 10 on a 10-point scale. It penetrated 6.5 inches. And you can see that it opened to its full cutting diameter on impact, which is pretty rare for a gator-style head on this rubber foam mat because it's kind of soft. Usually I have to test it on a cardboard box to see how well it opens, but this one opened very well. It took no additional force to cut through the wire after penetration test 1, which is a 10 on a 10-point scale for edge retention. It penetrated through 54 layers, and just like in penetration test 1, once the blades locked open, they stayed in that open position the entire way. It it's in absolutely perfect condition after the 3 shots through the MDF. Here it is after the second shot through the steel plate, and you can see the blades experienced a bit of edge chatter there, and then the tip got a little bit blunted, and then one of the little wing butts sheared off on the second shot on the right side, the top. You can see that there. That's the first time I've ever seen that happen in a SEVR, but it was on the second shot through the steel plate and otherwise held together well. Here's a good look at the head after all the durability tests. It's gone through the MDF 3 times, the steel plate 2 times, and then it's stuck really deeply into the concrete. And you can see the edge chatter that it incurred on the steel plate. And then one of the little blades here, as I noted earlier, the end broke off on the second shot into the steel plate. But then it stuck really deeply into the concrete, and even the blades hit the concrete a bit, as you can see in that picture. But man, it spins really well. If there's any wobble at all, which I don't see any, it would just be from the concrete that's fused to the tip right there. But really impressive durability in this Broadhead. So what did you think of the 1.75? Man, it did really well. The blades were super sharp and held their edge incredibly well. Of course, excellent flight. Like I said, one of the best flying broadheads there is out there. Great durability. Really impressed with this. And this broadhead actually got the highest score of any broadhead I've ever tested. It's the first one to score over 93 points. That's really hard to do. I mean, when you get up there like in the upper 80s and the 90s, I mean, it's like splitting hairs. And this one got over 93 points. I think this is going to be in my quiver quite a bit in the days ahead. So excellent job, SEVR. Man, keep up the great work. And feel free to use my discount code. If you type in LUSK5, LUSK FIVE, then you save $5 on any order. And you can order a really small order, a really big order, whatever, but you're going to save $5. And it's not a ton, but hey, $5 is $5. And SEVR has all kinds of cool stuff, from targets to their field points to their broadheads, and now this new 1.75 that I think is the best yet. So again, great job, SEVR. Keep up the great work.